Number 10. List 10 concise causes for the U.S. blowing off George Washington's advice. Spanish-American War. First the overview version, then the AP version. So let's just take a look at what I would do with my regular classes on causes, war, and the effects of the war. First off, I got 6 causes. Imperialism. Number 1, Cubans rebel against Spanish rule. Now, how do we see this? Let me see. The Cubans, the people, are rebelling against a king, a foreign power overseas across the Atlantic. Sound familiar? So guess who we're going to sympathize with? The king or the patriots? 2, yellow press. My goodness, do not underestimate the effect that they had on forming public opinion, especially when news moves a lot slower back then. So, inflames U.S. opinion against them, exaggerates Spanish atrocities, and compared Cuban rebels to American Revolution. Take a look at this cartoon. Whoops, excuse me. Right here is a cartoon. And you can see, oh my goodness, here they are, Spanish customs agents strip searching an American young woman and feeling her and looking at her and ogling her. Oh my goodness, what are they doing? Let's look at the reality. Did this happen? Yes. An American woman was stopped and searched. Let's fact check. 1, they didn't strip her down naked. 2, they were not men. They were women. So come on. At any customs station, you always search. At every country. This is no big deal. This is American journalists making a big deal out of it to sell papers. War. So this is called jingoism. Aggressive nationalism leading to war. What exemplifies this is the McKinley insult letter. It was a letter from the Spanish diplomat in America going back to Spain. It was intercepted, leaked. It made all kinds of insults about McKinley. Now, hey, his own vice president later on, Teddy Roosevelt, makes a lot worse insults about McKinley, but that's not the point. We can insult our president. Matter of fact, we're supposed to insult our own president. That's the American way. But don't you do it. Don't your countries do it. This is the attitude. War. Another factor leading towards war. Jingoism. Number 4 cause. McKinley orders, this was just crazy. Why do you order a warship into a place that looks like it's ready to explode? Isn't it like throwing a match on kindling? And it was. McKinley didn't want to do it, but when business interests in Cuba said, oh my goodness, the rebels, we're so worried about our U.S. interests. So, okay, I'll send this battleship. Bad move. Now, was it attacked? No. We find that out later, though. Were there Spanish atrocities? Well, yeah, there were. I mean, this is pretty bad. I mean, literal concentration camp here. I mean, you can see them. Skulls, bones. Need to see more. It's pretty bad. They were treating the people bad. They had a darn good reason to rebel. And number 6. Americans were highly invested in Cuba. Location. Only 90 miles off the coast of Florida. We had tons of business interests there. Remember, sugar grows in only certain places in the world, and Cuba's one of them. The USS Maine destroyed, blew up. 266 American sailors are dead. What happened? Spain blew it up. Well, today we know they didn't. Matter of fact, it was a flaw in the ship's design. Of the ships, I believe 11 were built. Don't Mark my words on this. I believe 11 were built and 5 blew up from defective boilers. Now, right after it blows up, crisis at hand, Spanish treachery. How do they know the Spanish blew it up? What do they have? Secret journalists there watching them blow it up? Well, we know they didn't today by evidence on the ship, the explosion coming from within instead of out. Thus, we know the boiler blew up. It was a design flaw. But hey, this sells newspapers. Now, you're going to get avid anti-imperialists, Mark Twain, William Jennings Bryan, Jane Addams, and others who say, you're only wanting war to get Cuba. No, we promise. That's not it. You are. We promise. Okay. Well, we'll write it down. We'll put it in the Declaration of War saying, we declare war, but we promise not to take Cuba. This is called the Teller Amendment. Later on, we'll have the Platt Amendment after the war that says, psych, yeah, we're going to take it. Love the cartoon, although I don't know if they'll use it. My students don't seem to be aware of the old phrase, out of the frying pan and into the fire. Excuse me. So here you got Cuba, the independence movement, in the frying pan, in the hot pan. It's bad. They're in Spanish misrule. It's bad. But if we help them get out of Spanish misrule and out of that hot frying pan, will it just get worse and into the fire called anarchy? So if we help free the Cubans, will it just make things worse? That's what the cartoonist is saying here. Out of the frying pan and into the fire. Of course, a lot of mistrust about Cuban people being able to rule themselves. They're not civilized. Whose book argued we need a bigger navy? Do you know it? Do you need choices? Really? Hope you know Alfred T. Mahan, who read his book. Question. Josiah Strong. What did he do? A, B, C, or D? And the answer is all three. Frederick Turner. Slave rebellion, annex Hawaii, safety valve theory, or Anglo-Saxon theory. I always like to remember Frederick Turner. You have to turn a safety valve. Stupid way to remember it. Hope it works. But when you see Frederick Turner, you know if you saw him on a primary document, boom, you would know exactly what they're wanting to know. Was the continental U.S. frontier gone? Where did Turner say we need to turn as a safety valve? I'm not even giving you time to answer this one. You should darn well know.
7 years of college down the drain.
All right, your next assignment on your accompanying study guide is the Spanish-American War Ed Puzzle. Click here and then report your score out of 12 when finished. All right, Spanish-American War. The actual events, Dewey destroys the fleet. What happens? He gets a phone call from Teddy. Teddy says, hey, I got inside track that we're going to be going to war with Spain. Why don't you get in your ships and head on towards Manila? By the time you get there, war will be on. Dewey listens, and he heads on steams towards Manila and does defeat the Spanish in Manila Bay. Still got a little problem of the Spanish on the islands. So now we're going to have to work with the Filipinos, led by Emilio Aguinaldo, to defeat the Spanish army on the islands. George Dewey, steel and iron hull, helped defeat the Spanish. And Emilio Aguinaldo, fighting Spain, surrounded by Dewey and Aguinaldo, Spanish forces surrender. Pop quiz! Pop quiz! The future President Theodore Roosevelt sent who orders to prepare? And Filipino rebels led by who had already been fighting in Spain? Did you know it was Dewey orders prepared for war against Spain, and Filipinos led by Emilio Aguinaldo. Oops, excuse me. Now we got to look at the other side of the war in Cuba. Aguinaldo defeats the Spanish army in the Philippines. He's considered their George Washington. There he is on their $5. I don't know if that's a dollar bill. U.S. Army wins in Cuba. We were very unprepared for war in Cuba. We're having all our men meet in Tampa, Florida to get all their supplies together. And in doing so, they are issued wool uniforms. Wool in Florida? What are they thinking? Our strategy was to control the port city of Santiago. And Teddy comes in. He quits his job as Assistant Secretary of the Navy. Woohoo! War! Remember, he's always got to prove, his whole life he wanted to prove that one last thing, that he could stand in combat. And this was his opportunity. And maybe a little opportunity at good press. Teddy Roosevelt Rough Riders, comprised of rich polo players who could afford their horses and were in shape already, and cowboys that he knew from the West. Together, they were prepared, they knew how to fight, and they had money or ability to have horses. Funny thing is they'd have to get up the horses before they got to Cuba. The U.S. Navy sank the entire Spanish fleet off the coast of Cuba. Wood ships versus steel ships. Brought a gun to a knife fight, didn't they? And the U.S. occupies Puerto Rico. The effects. Why does he call it the splendid little war? What kind of nut job would call any war splendid? Well, one who's seen the death and destruction of the American Civil War. After that, this was nothing. The Treaty of Paris, remember, when in doubt, and you don't know, always answer Treaty of Paris. Treaty of Paris is always the answer. My God, how many treaties of Paris do we have? U.S. acquires Cuba, Philippines, Guam, Puerto Rico. And what do whenever we take over your stuff? We pay you. Guadalupe Hidalgo. U.S. acquires the Philippines. Although I don't think the Filipinos wanted to be acquired. So let's take a look. Should we keep this stuff or not? The anti-imperialists said it was anti-American to, consent of the governed, and went against what we stood for. The imperialists, white man's burden. Also help with trade in China. And hey, if we didn't take it, somebody else would. You ever hear that excuse before? So, you can call this election a referendum on imperialism. Although, to be more accurate, it's probably more a referendum on Brian's bimetallism that just wasn't going to fly in these cities. So a state like New York that could go Democrat with a big Irish vote in New York doesn't, frankly, because of my bimetallism. Who wants inflation? Come on, Brian. So, with the imperialism and full lunch pail, you are going to get McKinley winning easily in 1900. Of course, the Solid South always goes Democrat during this time period. And you'll get the populist Western states also. This is a key turning point. Loud endorsement by the people who are in favor of imperialism. Maybe it wasn't an endorsement, but it certainly didn't rebuke McKinley's imperialistic designs. Now the U.S. had an empire and acquired a higher world status. Come on, pardon my language, but we just bitch slapped Spain big time. We're on the big, one of the big boys now. We're on the big stage.